Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Power Shift seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which every unit in our starting deck gets its power set to its provision cost, making low power, high provision cost units much stronger than usual. Today we're going to be using a powerful counter meta deck, so let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Nilfgaard Imprisonment counter meta deck that is all based around stopping the Northern Realms Reavers decks. Because, as we've shown from some previous decks that we've used in this event, Reaver Hunters are already extremely powerful cards, and in this event, having 6 base power on them means that they can create additional extra copies of themselves, making them even stronger than they are in Standard. That means they can get tons of damage, and because they're small enough that they can't get targeted by the tall removal cards like the various Geralts, that makes them really hard to stop, which has, of course, made them very popular as well. So this deck is designed to shut down those Reaver decks and then turn around and replay Reavers stronger than our opponent does. Now, although you might expect that to mean assimilate, that's actually not really the case. We are primarily a control deck using, obviously, Imprisonment for locks and as well as Collar for shutting down those Reavers, because if you shut down the one that is creating the extra copies, then you can prevent them from creating any more of those Reavers. Then we can use even more locks with things like the Moorlehem Hunter. Again, try to target the Reaver with its order ability remaining, because that's how they create more of them. So, they play one Reaver, turn 1, lock that Reaver, they can't create any more Reavers unless they play more from their hand, and you have already completely shut them down. However, although we can get even more lock with stuff like Alba Armored Cavalry, if our opponent is running Zeal, then they may still be able to get some of those Reaver Hunters to duplicate before we even get the chance to lock them. And that's where having something like Auckes is especially useful, because if we already have Serrit in our hand, which he is in our deck, that means that we lock all copies of a unit on our opponent's side of the board. So that means that even if your opponent manages to somehow get a bunch of Reavers on the board before you can lock them, you can still shut them all down with Auckes, which is incredibly powerful. Then our other counters are to use Olgierd Immortal, so that even if your opponent does get a bunch of Reavers on the board, they can't damage Olgierd because he's going to stay at his starting power. In this event, he's technically slightly weaker than he is in Standard, but still more than worth it if you're completely shutting down the entire point of your opponent's deck, which is dealing damage to your cards. Then the other thing we can do, which is especially devious, is we can use Letho Kingslayer to transform into a Reaver Hunter, and then with that, he's going to keep his base power of 10 in this event, which means he is an even stronger version of the Reaver Hunters than the ones that your opponent will have in their starting deck. So not only can you shut down your opponent's Reaver Hunters, you can create a stronger version of them with Letho Kingslayer. So that's the big thing we're trying to do. Outside of that, we have a few other big cards for putting up points, like Torres, which in general you're going to want to use in round 1 when you are creating copies of cards from your opponent's deck and giving even more boost to Torres, because in round 1 he's getting that 14 base power, whereas if you wait until you've already won a round and Torres evolves, then he will drop to 4 base power, which is of course significantly worse. So generally use him round 1 for a big point slam. That's one thing we can do, and then in terms of round 3, we'd like to use Terranova, who is going to be at 13 base power, which is huge, and then create a copy of one of the units that our opponent played, and that could give us a lot of value as well. If you can put Spying on one of your opponent's tall removal cards, then that is probably going to be the most reliable way to get value out of this. Granted, the copy you create with Terranova is going to have the usual base power, not the extra base power from this event, because the card you create with Terranova is not from your starting deck, but still, since there are going to be a lot of tall cards your opponent plays, assuming you can get Spying on one of your opponent's big tall removal cards, that can still be very valuable. And in terms of how you make that Spying happen, then we have the Turncoat, can do a little bit of that and damage to the units that have Spying, as well as perhaps even more reliably still going with Fercart here, because we do have some special cards, and you can put the Spying on a random enemy unit whenever you do that, with things like Renew to replay probably either what you transform into with Letho Kingslayer, or Olgierd Immortal, or Triss Butterflies to just give you better consistency, and then Experimental Remedy to play stuff from our opponent's graveyard. Another special we can use best in round 2 or round 3, of course, when your opponent is more likely to have stuff in their graveyard to target. And then we also can use other things to thin out from our deck, namely the Nauzicaa Brigades when we play a soldier in round 2 or round 3 once our opponent has won a round. That gives us a lot of value and thinning, because these are going to have 5 base power in this event. And then, somewhat similarly, we also have the Daerlan Soldiers, which are going to create extra copies of themselves, and at least the 2 original copies are going to be on 4 base power here. So lots of stuff we can thin out from our deck, giving us a lot of extra value in the round that we play those guys too. So if you've been having trouble running into a bunch of Reaver opponents, then this is just the deck you're looking for. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Northern Realms here, and we'll go first. Alright, so we do have a Nauzicaa Brigade in our hand in round 1. We don't really want that, so I think we dump you. Terranova's obviously a big pickup. We'd like to get the thinning out from Daerlan Soldier. That requires that we have a soldier on our side of the board to do that. That could be Magne Division, although Magne Division debatable as to whether... I mean, we're definitely not going to play Renew in round 1, but debatable whether we'll be able to pull off an experimental remedy. More likely, Royal Decree. I guess we could... no, Triss can't really help us out there. Yeah, it's a little bit awkward. It's a little... We have big cards here in round 1, but not necessarily the types of cards we want to be playing. Given how they are Inspired Zeal, one has to imagine this could very well be a Reavers deck, which is what this deck is designed to counter. Granted, we have point slams here that are probably better for round 3, not as much for round 1. But, I mean, we could lead with Torres if we really wanted to. And just get a big point slam. And see what some of the things are that they have in their deck. But maybe we start with Magne Division. And go into... Nah, then we'd have to go into Royal Decree immediately, which I don't like. I think it might have to be Torres first. I think it might have to be. Okay, there's your confirmation. There's all the confirmation you needed. Sure. We'll add some Reavers. And then we'll add... I guess Redanian Knight. So that's going to make Torres ginormous. So we have the lock to deal with that. We have Royal Decree could be to give us our Letho to transform into a much stronger Reaver. Right, Keurig City Guard, very common early play for Reaver decks. Obviously can't lock it either, which is a little bit problematic. We could also use Torres to get rid of some bad stuff if we wanted to, which... We could get rid of those Reaver Hunters and whatnot that we just created if we didn't really have any intention of playing them. And for the most part, we should see that the Reavers that we create through cards like Letho are going to be stronger than the ones that we just put into our deck. It's still too early for most of this other stuff, though. This is kind of what I meant. I think we go proactive Master Puppets. Okay, Ronvid is annoying. It's kind of the whole idea. So we could steal Keurig City Guard at any point in time. This is, of course, also, the longer we wait, the stronger it is, but, you know, it's going to get boosted on our side of the board anyway. This is potentially a way to counter the Reavers, though, which might be what we want to save that for. You are a soldier, though, which enables Daerlan Soldier, so I think we might jump the gun a little bit and lean on our lock to answer Reavers in this round and do this. Well, I mean, then you could steal back, but we could lock the Master Puppets with our leader ability or other sources if we need to. So I think we do this. I do think we still do this. And then we go this route to get that nice thinning. And now we could move Daerlan Soldiers if we wanted to with that Keurig City Guard, if necessary. That's another way. Windhelm. Didn't really see that coming. Could lock him. Yeah, we could use... Honestly, Collar on Master Puppets is not a terrible option here. So now, if we were to Triss, what would we like to get with her? I think we'd probably dump Experimental Remedy, because they're not going to have anything in their graveyard in round 1 in all likelihood. Just thinking we probably use that to either get Letho, so we can create stronger Reavers. Well, they had both of their starting Reavers were in their deck, right? Not in their hand. So I guess that means we may... they could very well tutor it out with something like Amphibious Assault, but... Or we go Olgierd as a way to mitigate the damage from the Reavers. I think either one is perhaps getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But let's go Triss. We'll dump you. And we'll add, I think you're more important. And then let's do this. So I don't want you to steal back Keurig City Guard. Alright, they're just going to pass. And it might have been, at least in part because we saw they seem to have had all of their Reaver Hunters in their deck. Now, did they have a tutor to get them out? Who knows? Maybe they just saw this big point advantage and were not about to try to catch us. Either way, we will win round 1. Okay, and we draw into Olgierd. That is one of the other key Reaver counter cards. That is good, but we also draw into the Nauzicaa Brigade, and this will get thinned out when we play a soldier, so we would like to get rid of you. And this could be a solid target for Magne Division. This could be a soldier to get out the brigades, otherwise we could use the Redanian Knight that we stole from them. Because the risk here is that there's swear, this always happens to me. I play Magne Division, use it to play special from or tactic from her hand, and then I draw into one of the Nauzicaa Brigades, even though they're supposed to get someone on the board on the same turn. So this is a safer way to get the reliable thinning. So I think we probably go that route. And we did play one more card than our opponent in the previous round, so not really sure how hard we're going to be trying to push here, but at least this does actually give us... Oh, right, we haven't lost a round, which is why we're not going to even get the brigades out right now. So maybe that's reason to save Magne Division. And, I mean, this is just a throwaway that is an engine. They are using Reaver Hunters here, though. That does get Ronvid out, but oh no. Oh no. I mean, yes, they have to use leader ability to work around our lock. Maybe they were concerned about Redanian Knight, but forcing them into using some of those Reavers in this round is definitely, I think, just about the perfect situation for us to bleed out some of their important stuff. So we could, for what it's worth, we could still Letho into a Reaver Hunter now. And then that's in large part what Renew is for, is to replay Letho, or actually, no, it doesn't work for Letho. It would have to be Olgierd. In that case, Letho would be a little bit too big, right? He's a 10 base power card. Yeah. So, I mean, in that case, you do already have the spying, so it's not like we need to set that up with Terranova, although case could still be made for Fercart, I suppose. Sure, we'll do that. And then we'll do this. Draw to Auckes, that's fine. This would be great if we had the Hunters out already. Oh, okay, I honestly didn't remember that Reinforced Ballista could hit our own card, but alas, apparently we did. Alright, not a huge deal. I'm not planning to play any further in this round. Okay, this is what I mean, though. They are seriously overcommitting in this round. I'm deliberately playing little stuff and seeing if we can trade small card for a big card, and that's definitely what we did with Redanian Knight, and absolutely what we did. I mean, Fercart's a little bit bigger than, you know, 4 provision throwaway, but for them to suddenly just throw down Boholt is a huge, huge commitment, so I think we absolutely pass here. We're still going to draw into 3 cards, so we'll still be on 10 cards in round 3, no issues there. And they committed a lot of big stuff. Alright, so we did draw into one of the Reaver Hunters. I actually think that's not a great play for us. Assuming they're going to get more Reaver Hunters out, this is the time where we're going to use Letho to transform into a bunch of much stronger Reavers than this, especially because this is not even getting the additional base power from this seasonal event because it's not from our starting deck. What we really want here is to have in hand a Serrit. So that way we immediately lock all their Reavers when we use Auckes. Yeah, we didn't get him though, unfortunately. Do we still have... We do have a Magne Division, which could... Okay, Shawnee's one of the reasons why they're willing to be more aggressive with the Reavers. So they need to leader ability here. They need to leader ability here, yeah. Otherwise, we immediately lock and completely shut them down. But the fact that they use the leader ability charge in round 2 is actually pretty crucially important, because that means now we can lock this Reaver Hunter, and they are still in a lot of trouble. And we could lock both of them if we really wanted to, in one turn if we really wanted to. But I think the question now becomes... How quickly do we pull the trigger on Letho transforming into one of our own Reavers? Because they might turn right around and do something to answer him. They probably have at least one form of tall removal. But if we do that with Letho Kingslayer, then maybe Olgierd Immortal is much safer, and we technically can still get Reaver Hunters out with Terranova, and we have some in our deck as well. So I think we'll give this a shot. I think we'll still give this a shot. Go here, transform into a much stronger Reaver Hunter. It does get out the brigades. We're going to lock you. They might still have some form of lock removal / purification, but if they don't, then they're in a lot of trouble there. Okay, reinforcements, sure, but we have lots of ways to shut them down. This is why I was saying that having Serrit in our hand to set up Auckes to immediately lock all of their Reaver Hunters in one turn would be incredibly powerful, because then we just say, alright, well, good luck. But, okay, so you cannot create any more copies of the Reaver Hunters, so they might be still shut down pretty significantly here. So, I mean, we could potentially still make it happen. What are we going to get with, Oh, we could use... Tell you what. We could go... Magne Division, Renew, Triss Butterflies, and use that to get our Serrit in hand to empower Auckes. I think that's the play. I think that's pretty incredible. Oh. Right, you're not a tactic. Oops. In which case, this is Imperial Diplomacy. And we get you anyway. And this is pretty ideal, I think. Early engine. So yeah, you're not able to create any more copies of the Reavers, so I'm not too concerned about you. Obviously, these are still dealing damage, even if they can't create copies of themselves. But now that we have Serrit in hand, okay, perfect. Honestly, perfect. We're just going to immediately lock all these when we play Auckes right now, because we have Serrit in hand. So this is the perfect counter. We have created a bunch, and are going to continue to create a bunch of Reaver Hunters here. So then we break out you and lock every single Reaver Hunter. So we still have lock from our leader ability, lock from Moorlehem Hunter, so we still have control remaining here. We even still have our anti-Reaver stuff with Olgierd as well. Can they create more Reavers? I mean, I guess there's a case to be made for waiting on Auckes until later, but that's also odd that you played that melee row. But now, let's see, what is the most time-sensitive here? Because now we're just trying to put up as many points as possible. So this is basically going to fill our entire row with Reavers eventually. Fercart, what are we doing in terms of specials? I mean, we will play a Royal Decree, but I'm not sure that's going to make a huge difference. Oops, that's supposed to be this. I mean, honestly, Redanian Knight, Reinforced Ballista, just 1 point per turn, or Carrick City Guard, 1 point per turn as well. I think it's Carrick City Guard. I think it might just be Carrick City Guard. Yeah. Plain and simple. Shawnee at some point is going to be able to bring some stuff back, so we might choose to lock her eventually. Okay, they're going to lock us. Now that, they should have done a long time ago. But they do not have nearly as much lock as we do, so we are still going to have these 3 Reavers going every turn. And sure, we can't create any more now, but I mean, we could create more Reaver Hunters with Terranova if we really wanted to. In fact, there's a case to be made that is the best option here, because he is going to be giving us more engines early. Yes, Terranova will be our biggest, highest base power card, so it is the best target for them to go after for tall removal. But I think it probably still pays off getting the engines on the board with him, because we did put spying on one of the Reaver Hunters, didn't we? Yeah. So I think we still can justify this. Otherwise, Redanian Knight is also not bad value long-term. Anything, don't need to lock Shawnee just yet, no other engines, so we should be fine here. Okay, Siege Ladder, doesn't matter if they move stuff. Also, you could have gotten the crew ability there, but you just didn't. So, I mean, there's theoretically, I guess, something to be said for locking that. I mean, we could. So, I mean, either that or we've now run out of Reaver Hunter potential, so you could make a case that melee row Moorlehem Hunter is actually preferable. Again, unless you want to lock that. Sure, I guess we will. Don't really think it's going to do much for us, but since we still have a lock from our leader ability, we can be a little bit aggressive there, I suppose. Get the reset on that Redanian Elite. Yeah, we're going to want to lock Shawnee pretty soon, I think. So they're about to get that back on their next turn. Redanian Elite, no problems there. We should be able to destroy that pretty quickly with our Reaver Hunters. What are they going to... Yeah, they can get back more Reaver Hunters there. So I think that's definitely what we're looking for. Let's... I mean, you're technically an engine. You're technically an engine. So we should put you down here and just put the spying on somebody who has a fair bit of power. Now we should... granted, we are about to lock and deal damage to you. You get reset as well. Okay, Voimir, decent point slam. Yes, that's about as good as it's going to get for them at this point, I would think. Either that or some locations to boost up their stuff with Garrison. All right, Serrit, we could use to just remove Shawnee, although kind of like to keep Shawnee here just as a turncoat target, so maybe we just hit somebody else with Serrit. We'll finish with Olgierd, and what is Royal Decree even going to get? I mean, we could Royal Decree into other Reaver Hunters. It's a little bit late to get good value out of that, I guess, but sure, why not? Otherwise, just go for the pure pointage with the base power from the Cavalry here, or, you know, either one of these could give lock, obviously. Tell you what, why not? Oh, because first I saw... because I saw the Royal Decree in our hand and thought we were about to play that with Magne Division. No, the Royal Decree is what we used to get Magne Division. Okay, fair enough. That's my bad. I mean, again, point slam-wise, doesn't make a huge difference. Triss. Triss is very solid. Triss is very solid. but don't think it's going to be big enough here. I mean, it depends what their last card is going to be, of course, but now we can Serrit and Olgierd. I guess we'll wait on Olgierd and just hit one of you. Alright, so what is their last play here? We're still getting some value from our engines. I was concerned about a potential Igni, but fortunately these did not line up, otherwise that could have been a concern. And it's still decent value. Would probably be their best possible play here. And that is exactly what it is. Okay. So is that enough? I don't think it will be, because we are just 2 points behind. 1 point behind, and now we are in the lead. So there you have it. Reaver counter deck successful. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here. And we'll go first. Okay, so we have a few bricks in hand here. We want to only have one Daerlan Soldier, so let's dump you. And then we also have one of our Nauzicaa Brigades, which is a card we want to save to thin out in a later round as well. So I think we're going to have to run with this, otherwise we run the risk of drawing into one of those other guys. Although it is going to be tough to make Experimental Remedy work in round 1, and we'd like to get a soldier on the board to set up the Daerlan Soldier, which could be a little bit tricky here. But I think we will leave it at this to avoid that bricking. Want to make sure we have at least one special card that we can play in round 1 for Fercart. As we were saying, Experimental Remedy doesn't really work here. We don't have anything to give spine to at the moment with Fercart, so I think we will play this original, or the initial Imperial Diplomacy before we even get anything, before we even play Fercart. Granted, everything here would ideally be something that is targeting their units. Duchess's Informant is -1. This is 1 higher base power, however, this is a soldier. And as I was just starting to say, getting a soldier is going to be pretty important, because now we can use Daerlan Soldier whenever. We might have otherwise found that a little bit difficult to make happen. Okay, they'll go Torres, which, granted, is something we may end up doing in this round as well. You can see in a second what they chose to create copies of. The answer is mostly big stuff. Triss, Auckes, and Master of Puppets. Okay, so I think this is a perfect target for us to use Fercart on. We will guarantee we get the spying on Torres to play another copy of him later. So that sounds good to me. So now they still don't have anything in their graveyard, so we are going to once again look at Imperial Diplomacy here. Draw into another one of those, though. Okay, and that's not very meaningful. That's, I mean, it might actually be the best option here. You two are pretty similar. You have a little more long-term potential, I guess. Could have locked Torres, I suppose. I'm not really concerned much about his order ability. It's primarily the deploy. Okay, yeah, and that's why I waited on Fercart. I wanted to make sure that we at least guaranteed we were going to give spine to one of their units, and the unit we gave the spine to was huge. So that, I think, absolutely still paid off. And we could either use our own Torres here for a big point slam, or we could go into Daerlan Soldier now to get the thinning. Let's go for the thinning now, because I do think Torres, as soon as we play him, is going to attract a lot of attention. So maybe we delay that as much as possible. And I'm hesitant to hit this Torres. I mean, I guess we don't really have much in the way of tall removal, so it's not like, you know, we're damaging a unit that's about to get completely removed anyway and making this damage completely insignificant, but there could still be better targets for it. Ooh. Ooh. Alright. It may be time for, I mean, if they try to mill us, then obviously we'll add more cards to our deck with Torres. And does raise some questions as to whether that was, I mean, if you have a Kingslayer in your starting deck, you're a mill deck. So, it'd be one thing if it was like a, you know, a Vilgefortz removing a high power card. Maybe you could still see that in a non-mill deck, but I think that does perhaps send some signals as to, speaking of Vilgefortz, what we would expect. Yeah, it's mill. Okay, or at least partially mill. Ooh, that is very telling, though. That is good to know they have Kolgrim. And okay, they're trying to do double Kolgrim. That's their intention. That's their intention here. Mill plus double Kolgrim, which is why they wanted to create a copy of Triss before. Okay, do we answer their Kolgrim with a Kolgrim of our own? We could potentially. Sure, we'll go Go very big here. Means not as much in the way of point slams. Or not as big of a point slam with Torres. That's the trade-off you basically have to make with Torres, is do you go for small units to get a lot of value from it? Yeah. Or do you get higher value cards in there, and they're going to continue to try to mill? So, I mean, we could remove other cards from our deck, but we probably don't want to. They milled out what? One of them was one of our brigades. The other one was just a Magne Division, I think. Both of which are decent cards. But the weakness with mill, of course, is that you're weak in terms of putting up points directly. We can deal damage to you. Can't quite remove... Well, we could remove you. The combination of these two, if we really wanted to. If we thought they were going to do even more mill that way. And that is technically an option. Guess we'll do this. The value there. 1, 2, 3... And just for the damage. It does mean that they now have a unit in their graveyard, so we could turn right around and use Experimental Remedy on them for it. Okay, so... We know they have a Vilgefortz, which if they have a tutor to get it out, they can use that on Torres, and that is probably enough for them to... It is almost certainly enough for them to catch us here. I mean, I guess it depends to a certain extent of what happens to get summoned out when they do that. Otherwise, this could be a decent time for us to pass. I mean, in general, when you're going against a mill deck, you do very much want to make sure that you win round 1. But we did add more cards to our deck with Torres, so it's not a huge... I mean, it's mostly mill to set up the Kolgrim, right? All the more reason why we shouldn't use Torres here. But let's go Experimental Remedy. Let's return the favor. I will never use Kolgrim, or rather, I will never use Kingslayer in my starting deck, but if you're going to do it to me, then you are accepting that I can turn around and do it to you. Okay, well, alas, that stinks. And this is why mill shouldn't exist, because it is a complete RNG dice roll that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, and it is just see what happens, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. But alas, we'll see if they can catch us here on this turn. Again, the obvious thing would be if they can tutor out Vilgefortz and use that on Torres. That would be their best point slam. No, they're just going to keep on milling, which means they will not catch us. And this is, again, like, this is not a competitive play. Like, it is a 0-point play. You're going voluntarily a card down. I mean, I guess they can just go all in round 2, round 3 with Kolgrim, is basically what they're going for here in that case. Let's just... From a game design standpoint, to get on my soapbox for a second, this shouldn't be a thing. So what does this say when you're encouraging people to do this? Alright, for what it's worth, they actually did want to go cards down in round 1 as opposed to set up a quicker Kolgrim in round 2 or round 3. So, that means they can more quickly hit Adrenaline 1 for Kolgrim, but we want to get rid of you. We draw into the Kolgrim that we stole from them. Theirs is much higher base power. There's going to be a 9 base power version, whereas ours is a 1 base power version. We can transform into another one with Letho, which is what they were trying to do, though. So we can match them a little bit in that way. So they're basically going to try to get a ton of tempo with that combo, but we can match that combo. So that's nice, and then we can potentially mill it out with this. That's kind of the intention. I don't think Olgierd's going to be that useful here. Question is, do they try to push 2-0, or are they going to settle and drive past here? I think they do actually want to push, because they want to be, again, on Adrenaline 1 as quickly as possible. It's not that valuable. Okay. So I think we might be looking at Experimental Remedy once again into Kingslayer. It outscores them on this turn. If we can mill one of their key cards, then we can return the favor and say, you want to commit war crimes, we'll commit war crimes as well. Why does this card exist? Okay, Cantarella, just add to the list of cards that probably should not exist. Okay, you can use that to steal a Kingslayer, which is a bit of a positive play, but you've used both teleportations, so you're not going to be able to replay it anyway, although you are thinning out our deck more, which does make Kolgrim stronger. Then again, as we were saying, we have a Kolgrim as well now. Yours is starting a little bit higher than ours is. Problem, though, is that they got rid of... We did also make an extra Letho. They did too. One of the problems is they got rid of our Terranova, which would have been huge, because that was going to give us an extra Torres as well. So that would have been our big advantage, but we don't have that anymore. I think we just lock. So we're in the lead right now. We just lock you. We are expecting to see, and there goes out the Nauzicaa Brigade as well. They did mill one of them, but they're going to play one other throwaway here, and then it's KolgriM. Or they might start setting things up by having a defender. No? Okay. The Purify, and they could steal. It's not a huge play, but they could consider it. Okay, so basically we need to be prepared to match their KolgriM combo with our own KolgriM combo. We still renew? We do. Which is enough to bring back KolgriM, but not enough to bring back Letho. Once he transforms into KolgriM, either way. So do we deliberately just use Triss to set ourselves up for more of that stuff by, say, dumping Serrit and replacing him with Letho, or replacing him with, yeah, basically Letho, or maybe Defender? If they have any... They're double cross, they've already used it, so they might not have control to shut this down. I think we do this. Dump Serrit. Add this Letho. It does mean we've now played big stuff, or at least force ourselves into playing big stuff in this round. Because if they push further, which I imagine they're about to start doing KolgriM stuff, if they push further, then basically that means that we are going to be forced into playing big stuff that we would have perhaps liked to have saved. But I think we basically been forced into going for a 2-0 here. We already do have a point advantage, a somewhat significant point advantage at that. Oh, what is this? Do they only have KolgriM? Oh, that was pretty decent. That was quite good. That worked very well with Master Puppets, but we can now use Master Puppets to steal a 13-point Imperial Diviner later. So that's still not bad for us. Yeah, so I assume they would have liked to have gone Defender, KolgriM, Letho into second KolgriM. They must only have KolgriM and not any of the other stuff in their hand right now, otherwise they would have done that earlier. So I think that means what we'll do here is we'll go Royal Decree into Defender. I mean, technically we don't really need it. We don't really need it right now. So we could deliberately just play something... In which case, if we were to use a throwaway of sorts, we'll just go for like a... So we can save you. Maybe we go for an Olgierd. I mean, it is a point slam, so it's not bad. We're just putting up points. So this is going to be KolgriM. They just can't do it. We know exactly what they're trying to do, but they know that if they play one KolgriM here, at best it's 9 points in one turn, which plus the 9 base power on KolgriM is 18, but I think the deficit is big enough here that they just can't catch us. So that means we will hold on to win this round, and we still have the big stuff saved up for round 3. Oh, and yeah, did I say we're going to push 2-0? They won round 1. Okay, but they still like this card disadvantage. In theory, normally, you would like that card disadvantage because that means you get to Adrenaline 1 more quickly, and that means that their KolgriMs are going to activate before our KolgriMs activate. However, we can create 2 KolgriMs. They may be able to create 2 KolgriMs. We're not sure definitively about that or not. Renew at this stage. What can it do for us? We could get incredibly greedy and use it to play Cantarella and see if we steal one of their KolgriMs. Which is kind of ridiculous, but, I mean, they chose to pick a troll deck. So, you know, again, we're just fighting fire with fire here. Or we could go... Yeah. Serrit doesn't really matter much for us. I mean, we could go Proactive Defender, I guess. And just wait. See if there's something else we might want to use Renew to get later on, in which case, what would that change? I mean, the downside of Cantarella is obviously we're handing them 7 points, which is a lot. I guess we'll go Defender first. We obviously stole this from them. They have one in their starting deck, and their one from their starting deck is a lot higher base power than ours is. So that's another one where, although we can also do what they're trying to do, their setup is a little bit stronger. We will have a little bit of an extra advantage from having extra cards here. Okay, we don't really have much in the way of tutors, so Doesn't make a huge difference. Auckes perhaps would have been kind of nice to combine with Serrit, but so be it. Okay, so now, I mean, basically, the only thing that changes is if we were thinking we would use Renew into Triss to swap out Serrit and instead get something else, but I don't think that makes a huge difference. So we might just be stalling here and using Serrit. Otherwise, yeah, so this turn is where they would like to start doing Defender, KolgriMill, Letho, or Tutors to get some of those things. So if we were thinking that we're going to try to get Clever and Cantarella something important, then this would be the time to do it. Alright, we'll do it. It is so incredibly toxic that I hate it, but they try to do it to us, so we will try to do it to them. It is a negative point play. It did not work. That was the downside. That means they might just have the stuff they're looking for directly in hand right now. So, you know, maybe that's, you know, gonna come back to bite us. We'll see. Oh, although they had to use Triss to get one of them. Okay, so they did not have them all in hand. So they won't have a defender. Oh, that means we can just lock them with leader ability. They will get one turn each out of... One is... First is going to be KolgriMill, then it's going to be Letho into a KolgriMill. But they're not going to get as good value out of it as they would like, because we should be able to lock them immediately. So now we just do damage for the sake of doing damage. This should be KolgriMill. Oh no, it's Vilgefortz. What? I deliberately didn't play anything that important thus far. Oh, it's a Vilgefortz themselves? What? Are they trying to... Do they realize that there's no way they can beat us unless they get incredibly lucky and happen to thin out a random KolgriMill of their own from their deck? I'm not entirely sure, but now we can break out our KolgriMill. It's still one turn early, but we have to do this so that we have targets for Letho to transform into on our next turn. I was expecting for them to play a KolgriMill on that turn right there, but not really sure what they're going for. Well, I mean, we knew it was going to be KolgriMill at some point, right? But since that's going to get a reasonable boost here, but we can lock it, which does matter, even though they've already passed, because when we play this turn right now, it's going to turn back over to them, and KolgriMill would normally still get a boost from that. But now we can do this. Let's get 2 KolgriMills to their now 0 KolgriMills. As we've already won, we could create a 3rd KolgriMill if we really needed to, when we would have been able to lock their 2nd KolgriMill if they had gotten one. So somewhere along the way, they ran into some issues and couldn't get the 2nd one out there. But either way, we will take the win. So there's a look at a Nilfgaard Reaver counter meta deck for the new Power Shift seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions we should experiment with next. And take a look at our playlist for previous decks that we've used in this event as well. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.